I buried my husband on a Tuesday. By the following Monday, my daughter-in-law had locked me in a bedroom with 4 sick children and a lie about keeping us all safe. The funeral had been small. Richard died after 6 months of fighting pancreatic cancer, and by the end, there wasn't much left of the man I'd married 35 years ago. The floriculture business we'd built together, Whitmore and Sons Flowers, sat in probate with everything else. Before we continue, comment where you're watching from, and subscribe to the channel. We'd love to see how far our stories are reaching. $890,000 in life insurance and retirement accounts. The house on Maple Street worth $420,000. All of it mine now, according to Richard's will. I'd read that will so many times in the week after his death that I had it memorized. To my beloved wife, Penelope, I leave everything. She sacrificed her teaching career to build this business with me. She earned every penny. Dylan had smiled when the lawyer read those words. Meredith, his wife of 10 years, had squeezed my hand. I'd thought it meant they understood, that they recognized the years I'd spent elbow-deep in soil and flower arrangements, the decades of 4 a.m. market runs and holiday rushes. I was wrong. "Mom, you look exhausted." Dylan appeared at my door that Sunday afternoon, 7 days after we'd put Richard in the ground. His eyes were kind, concerned in that practiced way he'd developed working in pharmaceutical sales. "Meredith and I were talking. You shouldn't be alone right now." I was sitting in Richard's recliner, still wearing the same sweater I'd worn to the funeral. The house felt too big without him, too quiet. "I'm managing," I said, but my voice cracked on the second word. "Come stay with us for a while." Dylan crouched beside the chair. "Just until you get your feet under you. The kids would love it. You know how Sophia's been asking about you." Sophia was 9, the oldest of their 4 children. Mason was 7, Isabella 5, and baby Lucas had just turned 20 months. I hadn't seen them much since Richard got sick. Meredith said she didn't want to expose them to the hospital environment. "I don't want to impose," I started, but Dylan was already standing, pulling me gently to my feet. "You're not imposing. You're family. Let me pack you a bag." That's how it started. With kindness that felt real, with concern that seemed genuine, with my son's hand on my elbow, guiding me out of my own house like I was something fragile that might shatter. Meredith's house in the suburbs was massive, one of those new constructions with vaulted ceilings and granite countertops. She'd decorated in whites and grays, everything pristine and cold. She greeted us at the door with Lucas on her hip, the baby's cheeks flushed red. "Penelope, I'm so glad you're here." She kissed my cheek, and I caught the scent of her perfume, something expensive and sharp. "Lucas has been running a fever all day. I think Sophia's coming down with something too. You don't mind helping out while you're here, do you? I know you took care of Richard through everything." The compliment felt like a hand closing around my throat, but I smiled. "Of course. Wonderful. The guest room is upstairs, but actually..." She exchanged a look with Dylan that I couldn't read. "Given the circumstances, I think it might be better if you stayed in the playroom with the kids. Todd, my brother, he's a doctor, you know. He mentioned there might be COVID exposure at Lucas's daycare, just as a precaution, until we know for sure." "COVID?" My voice sounded distant. "But Lucas is in the same house with all of you. Todd says it's best to contain it." Meredith's smile never wavered. "The playroom has its own bathroom. You'll be comfortable there, and you can keep an eye on the children. Make sure they're not getting worse." Dylan was already carrying my bag upstairs. I followed, my legs moving automatically. The playroom was large, filled with toys and twin beds pushed against opposite walls. A portable crib sat in the corner for Lucas. The carpet was stained with old juice spills and marker. The single window looked out over the backyard, snow piled against the fence. "I'll bring dinner up," Meredith said. "And some children's Tylenol. Todd's dropping off test kits tomorrow, but in the meantime, better safe than sorry, right?" She closed the door. I heard the lock click. I stood there for a long moment, holding Lucas, who was burning up against my chest. The other children were scattered around the room. Sophia on one bed reading, Mason and Isabella playing blocks on the floor. They all looked at me with fever-bright eyes. "Grandma?" Sophia's voice was small. Are you staying? Yes, sweetheart. I sat down on the edge of the bed, still holding Lucas. I'm staying. That night, I found 3 packages of ramen noodles in the playroom's mini fridge, 2 juice boxes, and a half-eaten container of applesauce. There was children's Tylenol, but when I checked the bottle, it had expired 14 months ago. Lucas's fever climbed to 103, 2 degrees Fahrenheit by midnight. I held him in the rocking chair by the window, humming the lullabies I'd sung to Dylan when he was small. Outside, I could see lights on in the main part of the house, movement behind curtains, the sound of laughter drifting up through the heating vents. That's when I heard them. Meredith's voice first, sharp and clear through the air duct near the floor. How long until she signs the papers? Dylan's response was quieter, harder to make out. I don't know. A few days? Todd said the shock of grief makes people more suggestible. A few days? Meredith laughed, but there was no humor in it. We're paying $3,200 a month on this house, Dylan. The investment property in Florida is bleeding us dry. I maxed out 2 credit cards just keeping up appearances at the club. We need that money now. I know. Todd's drawing up the temporary power of attorney papers tomorrow. We just need her to sign them, then we can move the accounts before she realizes what's happening. And if she doesn't sign? The silence stretched so long I thought they'd stop talking. Then Dylan spoke again, and his voice was different, harder. Then we go to Plan B. Todd knows a psychiatrist who'll testify she's not mentally competent. Grief-induced cognitive decline. We can get conservatorship. I stopped rocking. Lucas stirred against my chest, his small hand fisting in my sweater. They were going to steal it. Everything Richard and I had built. Everything he'd left me. My own son was planning to take it all. The second day started with Mason vomiting in the bathroom at 6A. I held his hair back while he retched into the toilet, his small body shaking. His forehead burned under my palm. 103. 7 darts according to the thermometer I'd found in the playroom's first aid kit. Isabella woke up crying, her sheets soaked with sweat. Sophia sat on her bed, unnaturally quiet, watching me move between her siblings. Lucas hadn't slept all night. The fever had climbed to 103. 9 degrees despite the expired Tylenol I'd given him every 4 hours. I knocked on the locked door, knocked harder. Meredith? Dylan? The children need a doctor. No answer. I pressed my ear against the wood and heard nothing. The house was silent in that particular way that meant no one was home. On the 3rd knock, my phone buzzed. A text from Meredith. Took Dylan to airport. Work emergency in Denver. Back Wednesday. Todd says fevers are normal with this strain. Keep them hydrated. Clean sheets in hallway closet. I read it twice. Today was Monday. Wednesday was 2 days away. I tried the door handle again, knowing it was useless. Then I tried calling Dylan. The call went straight to voicemail. I called Meredith. Same thing. Grandma? Sophia was standing behind me, her face pale. I don't feel good. I checked her temperature. 102, 4 degrees, 4 children, all of them sick. Me locked in a room with one window that didn't open, a mini fridge with nothing but condiments now that we'd eaten the ramen for dinner, and a bathroom with a toilet that ran constantly. I looked at my phone. 7:23 a.m. My battery was at 34%. I tried calling 911. The call connected and then immediately dropped. I tried again. Same thing. I checked my signal. Full bars. But every emergency call failed after 2 seconds. They'd done something to the phone system. Some kind of blocker. I sat down on the floor, Lucas heavy in my arms, and tried to think past the panic. Richard had always said I was good in a crisis. You don't freeze. He'd told me once after I'd delivered a wedding order during a tornado warning. You just get quiet and figure it out. I needed to figure this out. The heating vent. The one I'd heard them through last night. I crawled over to it, pressing my face close to the metal grate. Voices drifted up, faint but audible. A television. News anchors discussing weather. Then commercials. They'd left the TV on. Insurance against the silence, maybe. Or maybe Meredith really had gone somewhere. But Dylan's car was still in the driveway. I could see it from the window. I checked the closet. Found the clean sheets Meredith had mentioned, still in plastic. Found old board games, broken toys, a box of Halloween decorations. In the back, underneath a stack of baby blankets, I found something else. A folder, medical records. Sophia Whitmore, age 9. History of recurrent fever episodes. Multiple ER visits. No definitive diagnosis. Mason Whitmore, age 7. Chronic low-grade fevers. Tested for autoimmune disorders. Results inconclusive. Isabella Whitmore, age 5. Recurrent viral symptoms. Hospitalized twice for dehydration. Lucas Whitmore, age 20 months. 4 ER visits in last 6 months for fever of unknown origin. I sat back on my heels, the folder shaking in my hands. The pattern was there, obvious once you saw it. The children weren't just sick now. They'd been sick repeatedly. Regularly. And Meredith was a corporate lawyer who worked from home. Dylan traveled constantly for sales calls. Todd was Meredith's brother, a doctor who made house calls, a doctor who was helping them. I thought about Meredith's hands on Lucas yesterday, the way she'd positioned him on her hip, his flushed face visible to me immediately. The performance of concern. I checked Lucas's temperature again. 104. 1 degree Fahrenheit. My hands were steadier than they should have been as I stripped the fever-soaked sheets off Isabella's bed. I'd taken care of Richard through 6 months of dying. I'd learned how to manage symptoms, how to make someone comfortable when doctors couldn't make them better. I'd learned that you do what needs doing, even when you're terrified. I gave all 4 children lukewarm baths in rotation, used washcloths to cool their skin, made them sip water even when they didn't want to. By noon, I'd gotten the fevers down to 101 degree IF across the board. Not good, but better. The door opened at 2:47 p.m. Meredith stood in the hallway holding a McDonald's bag. She was wearing yoga pants and a sweatshirt, her hair in a ponytail. She looked like she'd been home all morning. How are my babies? She stepped into the room, her eyes scanning the children on the beds. They were sleeping finally, after hours of restlessness. They need a doctor. I stood between her and Lucas's crib. They all have fevers over 103. Lucas needs to be seen now. Todd was here this morning while you were sleeping. She set the McDonald's bag on the dresser. He said they just need rest. These things run their course. Todd wasn't here. I've been awake since 6. Meredith's smile didn't change. You must have dozed off. He came in through the garage entrance, checked on everyone, left prescriptions with me. She pulled a paper pharmacy bag from her purse. Antibiotics for everyone. Todd says they'll be fine by tomorrow. She handed me the bag. I looked inside. 4 prescription bottles. All from the same pharmacy. All dated today. All prescribed by Dr. Todd Ashford. I need to talk to Dylan, I said. Dylan's in Denver, I told you. His car is in the driveway. Something flickered across her face. He took an Uber, early flight. Let me out of this room. The quarantine isn't over. Her voice was still pleasant, still calm. Todd says 48 more hours, for everyone's safety. You can't keep me locked in here. I'm protecting my children, Penelope. She moved toward the door. And protecting you. You're not thinking clearly. The grief, it's affecting your judgment. Todd mentioned that too. He's worried about you. She stepped into the hallway. The McDonald's bag sat on the dresser, grease already seeping through the paper. There are documents downstairs, Meredith said. Power of attorney papers. Just temporary, until you're feeling better. Dylan can help manage things while you recover. The business, the accounts. It's a lot to handle alone. I'm not signing anything. We'll talk about it tomorrow. She started to close the door, then paused. Oh, and Penelope, I wouldn't try breaking the window. It's 20 degrees outside. The children would get pneumonia in minutes. You wouldn't want that on your conscience. The lock clicked. I stood there holding the pharmacy bag, Lucas whimpering in his sleep behind me. The antibiotics felt heavy in my hands. I checked the labels again. Amoxicillin for all 4 children. Standard dosing. Nothing that explained why they'd been sick so many times before. That's when I saw it. A small detail that didn't fit. The pharmacy address was in Cincinnati, 2 hours away. Why would Todd use a pharmacy in Cincinnati when there were 3 drugstores within 5 miles of this house? I turned the bottle over, looking for anything else. Found the pharmacist's initials. Found the prescription number. Found a small sticker on the bottom of one bottle that had partially peeled away. Underneath it, another label. Older. Different medication. Ipecac syrup. 30 ml. My stomach dropped. Ipecac. The drug they used to induce vomiting in poison cases. The drug they'd stopped recommending years ago because it was too dangerous. I pulled the sticker completely off. All 4 bottles had the same thing underneath. Different amounts. Different dates over the last 6 months. All prescribed by Todd Ashford. She'd been poisoning them. Meredith had been making her own children sick. I looked at the kids sleeping on the beds, Isabella's thumb in her mouth. Mason curled around his stuffed dinosaur. Sophia's book still open on her chest. Lucas's tiny fist clenched around the edge of his blanket. My phone buzzed. Another text from Meredith. Forgot to mention. There's a photographer coming tomorrow to update our family photos. Please make sure the children look presentable. We want Grandma looking her best too. Below the message was an attachment. I opened it. Photoshopped images. 6 of them. Me sitting at a desk, signing documents. Different angles, different lighting. Good enough to pass casual inspection. Good enough to fool a bank employee who wasn't looking too closely. The next text came through before I could process the first. We can do this the easy way or the hard way, Penelope. Your choice. Either way, those accounts get transferred by Friday. Todd has friends at the probate court. Psychiatrists who specialize in cognitive decline. 1 phone call and you're in a 72-hour psychiatric hold. How do you think that looks to a judge? I stared at the screen until it went dark. Then I looked at the window, at the snow piled against the glass, at the children who'd been systematically poisoned to create a paper trail of medical incompetence, at the locked door and the heating vent and the medical records hidden in the closet. They'd thought of everything, but they hadn't thought of one thing. I'd spent 35 years running a business with Richard. I knew how to read people, how to spot problems before they became disasters, how to plan 3 steps ahead, and I'd spent 6 months watching my husband die, learning exactly how much a person could endure before they broke. I wasn't anywhere near broken yet. Lucas stopped breathing at 3:47 a.m. on the 3rd day. I was dozing in the rocking chair, him against my chest when I felt it. That terrible stillness. The absence of the small rise and fall I'd been monitoring all night. I was on my feet before conscious thought kicked in. Laid him on the floor, checked his airway. Started infant CPR with hands that remembered the training from 30 years ago when Dylan was born. 15 compressions. 2 breaths. 15 compressions. 2 breaths. Grandma? Sophia's voice terrified from the bed. Stay there, I said. 15 compressions. 2 breaths. Lucas's lips were gray in the dim light from the hallway that seeped under the door. 15 compressions. 2 breaths. He gasped, choked, breathed. I turned him on his side and he vomited, then cried, then breathed in ragged sobs that were the most beautiful sound I'd ever heard. I held him until the shaking stopped. Mine or his? I couldn't tell. His temperature was 104, 6 degrees. I carried him to the door and pounded with my fist. Meredith, Dylan, he needs a hospital now. Nothing. I pounded harder. Kicked the door. Someone help us! The house stayed silent. I went to the window. Dylan's car was still in the driveway, covered in fresh snow. No other cars, no lights in the neighbors' houses. It was Tuesday night, or Wednesday morning now. The neighborhood slept while a baby nearly died 20 feet away. I looked at the window. Single-pane glass, old house, cheap construction, the kind of window that would shatter easily. But it was 19 degrees outside, wind chill below 0. The children were in pajamas. I had on the same clothes I'd been wearing for 3 days. If I broke the window, cold air would flood the room instantly. The children's fevers would spike. Hypothermia in minutes for Lucas, already weak. Pneumonia for all of them. Meredith had known exactly what she was doing when she'd made that threat. I sat back down with Lucas, wrapped him in every blanket I could find. Sophia climbed into my lap too, her small body pressed against mine. Mason and Isabella huddled together on the other bed. Is Lucas going to die? Isabella's voice was tiny. No, I made my voice steady. No, he's not. I promise. It was a promise I had no right to make. I checked my phone. 4:12 a.m. Battery at 11%. Still no signal that would connect to emergency services. I'd tried 17 times since Monday. The medical records folder sat on the dresser where I'd left it. I'd read through it twice more while the kids slept, looking for anything I'd missed. Found notes from a hospital social worker after Lucas's third ER visit. Mother reports grandmother has been primary caregiver during recent illness episodes. Expressed concern about grandmother's age and capacity. They'd been building the case for months. Every sick visit, every ER trip, Meredith had been planting seeds. The confused grandmother who couldn't manage, the elderly woman who needed help. And I'd been so focused on Richard's illness, on keeping the business running, on surviving each day, that I hadn't seen it. The morning came slowly. Gray light through the window. Lucas's fever dropped to 103. 8 to grub, still dangerous, but he was breathing steadily now. I'd gotten some water into him, some of the juice I'd been rationing. At 9:15 a.m., I heard footsteps in the hallway. The door opened. Todd stood there in khakis and a button-down shirt, a leather bag in his hand. He looked every inch the concerned physician, handsome in that bland way, late 40s, graying at the temples. Penelope. He stepped into the room, closed the door behind him. Meredith tells me you've been having a difficult time. Lucas stopped breathing last night. He blinked, set his bag on the dresser. Children's fevers can cause breath-holding spells, perfectly normal, nothing to panic about. He needs a hospital. I'm a doctor. I can assess him here. He pulled out a stethoscope, moved toward Lucas, still wrapped in my arms. I didn't move. You've been prescribing ipecac to make them sick. Todd's hand paused halfway to his stethoscope. That's an interesting theory. Do you have proof? The bottles, in the pharmacy bag, the old labels underneath. Bottles that you've had in your possession for over 24 hours. He smiled. Bottles that, if tested, would only show your fingerprints now. And Penelope, I have to ask, why would you keep medications that were making children sick, unless you're the one who's been using them? The room tilted. That's insane. Is it? He sat down on the edge of Mason's bed. Mason pressed himself against the wall. You've been isolated in here for 3 days. Plenty of time to develop paranoid delusions. Grief does terrible things to the mind. I've seen it before. People start seeing conspiracies everywhere. You're helping them steal my inheritance. I'm helping my sister protect her children from a grandmother who's clearly experiencing a mental health crisis. He pulled a tablet from his bag. I've been documenting everything. Your paranoid statements. Your refusal to allow proper medical care for the children. Your aggressive behavior at the door in the middle of the night. It's textbook cognitive decline accelerated by grief and stress. He turned the tablet toward me. Notes. Detailed notes. Dated entries going back 6 months. November 2023. Patient exhibits confusion about basic financial matters. Required assistance from son and daughter-in-law to understand probate documents. December 2023. Patient becoming increasingly isolated. Refuses social contact. Shows signs of depression and possible early dementia. January 2024. Patient's deceased husband's effects still untouched. Inability to process grief. Daughter-in-law reports patient left stove on twice. All lies. All documented. All signed by Dr. Todd Ashford, MD. This is fraud, I said. This is medical record keeping. And tomorrow, a psychiatrist colleague of mine will conduct a formal evaluation. Court ordered. Dylan filed the petition yesterday. You'll be placed under a temporary psychiatric hold for your own safety. 72 hours minimum. During that time, Dylan will assume temporary power of attorney to protect your assets and ensure the children's well-being. He stood up, packing his stethoscope away. The hearing is Friday morning. I'll be testifying. So will Meredith. So will the psychiatrist. The judge will see a grieving widow who's lost touch with reality, a danger to herself and her grandchildren. The conservatorship will be granted. Your son will control your finances. It's really for the best. Dylan wouldn't do this. Dylan is doing this. He's the one who called me about his concerns. He's the one who filed the paperwork. He loves you, Penelope, but he loves his family more. Todd moved to the door. This can be easy or hard. Sign the power of attorney papers today. Let us help you, and you can leave this room. Refuse, and you'll leave in handcuffs tomorrow morning when the psychiatric transport arrives. I want to see Dylan, face to face. Dylan's in Denver, like Meredith told you. His car is in the driveway. Company car. He drove the Lexus to the airport. Todd's hand was on the doorknob. You're grasping at straws, Penelope. It's sad to watch. If I sign, what happens to the children? They get the medical care they need. From actual doctors, not a panicked grandmother with outdated CPR training. He opened the door. Sophia whispered something I couldn't hear. Todd smiled at her. Hi, sweetheart. How are you feeling? Sophia looked at me, then at him. When she spoke, her voice was small but clear. Grandma saved Lucas. He stopped breathing and she made him breathe again. Todd's smile never wavered. That's a very scary dream, honey. But Lucas is fine. Your grandma just got confused. It wasn't a dream. Sophia sat up straighter. I watched her. She did compressions. Like on TV. Fever dreams can seem very real. He looked at me. I'm adding another note to the file. Causing children's psychological distress with imaginary medical emergencies. That's another point against you, Penelope. He left. The lock clicked. I sat there holding Lucas. The other children gathered around me now. Mason's hand on my arm. Isabella's head against my shoulder. Sophia pressed against my side. They'd thought of everything. Every angle. Every escape route. Tomorrow morning, they'd take me out of here in handcuffs. By Friday, Dylan would control everything. By next week, the money would be gone, moved to accounts I'd never trace, and I'd be locked in a psychiatric facility with a medical file that said I'd done this to myself. The window. It came back to that. I could break it. Scream for help. Maybe someone would hear. Maybe someone would call 911. Maybe paramedics would arrive before the children went into hypothermic shock. Or maybe no one would hear. Maybe the cold would kill Lucas before help came. Maybe I'd trade his life for a chance at proving the truth. Grandma? Sophia was looking at me with those two old eyes. What are we going to do? I looked at each of them. 4 children who'd been poisoned by their own mother to build a case against me. 4 children who'd be left with Meredith and Dylan and Todd if I failed. I thought about Richard, about what he'd say if he were here. We survive, I said. Whatever it takes, we survive. I checked Lucas's temperature. 104, 2 degrees Celsius, whatever it takes. Even if it meant risking everything on a window and 19-degree weather, and the hope that someone, somewhere, would hear us scream. I waited until 2 p.m. Wednesday afternoon. Lucas's fever had climbed back to 104. 4 degrees ERV. His breathing was shallow, rapid. I'd gotten him to take small sips of water, but he'd vomited twice in the last hour. The other children watched me from the beds as I gathered every blanket in the room. Wrapped them around Sophia, Mason, and Isabella. 3 layers each. Then I took the fitted sheets off both beds and stuffed them under the door, blocking the gap where cold air would rush in. Sophia, I need you to listen very carefully. I knelt in front of her. When I break that window, you're going to take Mason and Isabella into the bathroom. Close the door. Sit in the bathtub and keep the blankets tight around all of you. Don't come out until I tell you. Understand? She nodded, her face pale but determined. Mason, Isabella, you do exactly what Sophia says. This is very important. Are we going to be okay? Mason's voice cracked. Yes. I made myself believe it. We're going to be fine. I wrapped Lucas in 4 blankets, creating a cocoon with just his face visible, held him against my chest with my left arm. Then I picked up the rocking chair. It was heavier than I expected. Solid wood, the kind Richard would have approved of. Good construction. Now, I said. Sophia herded Mason and Isabella into the bathroom. The door closed. I swung the chair at the window. The glass exploded outward. Cold air slammed into the room like a physical force. I dropped the chair and lunged for the window. Lucas clutched against me. Help! My voice tore out of me. Someone help us! Children in danger! Call 911! The neighborhood was empty. Midday on a Wednesday. Everyone at work or school. Snow-covered yards. No cars moving on the street. Help! Fire! Fire! I screamed the lie because I remembered reading somewhere that people respond faster to fire than to generic calls for help. Fire! Children trapped! My face was going numb. Lucas whimpered against my chest. I could feel the cold seeping through the blankets. A door opened across the street. An elderly man stepped onto his porch, looking around. "Call 911!" I screamed. "Children in medical emergency! Call now!" He stood there for a second that lasted forever. Then he went back inside. I kept screaming. My throat was raw. Lucas was shaking in my arms. Whether from fever or cold, I couldn't tell anymore. 2 minutes. 3. The cold was inside my chest now, making it hard to breathe. Then I heard sirens. I pulled back from the window, stumbled to the bathroom. "Sophia, stay in there. Help is coming." The sirens got louder. I moved to the locked door and pounded on it with my fist. "Meredith, police are here. Unlock this door." Footsteps, fast, in the hallway. The lock clicked. The door flew open. Meredith stood there in perfect makeup, hair styled, wearing a cream sweater and designer jeans. Behind her, Dylan appeared at the top of the stairs. "Not in Denver. Right here. What did you do?" Her voice was ice. "Saved your children's lives." The sirens were directly outside now. Car doors slamming. Voices shouting. Meredith looked at the broken window, at me holding Lucas, at the door where Sophia was peeking out. Her face went through a series of calculations I could see clearly. Then she started crying. Real tears, instant and perfect. "Oh my God!" She reached for Lucas. "What happened? Did you break the window? It's freezing in here." I stepped back. "Don't touch him." "She's been having delusions," Dylan said to someone behind him. I looked past him and saw 2 paramedics on the stairs. "My mother. She's not well. We've been trying to help her, but this baby needs immediate medical attention." I held Lucas out to the first paramedic, a young woman with kind eyes. Fever of 104. 4, vomiting, labored breathing, 3 days of symptoms. She's been keeping us locked in this room. The paramedic took Lucas, her partner already pulling out equipment. "Ma'am, how long has he been symptomatic?" "Since Monday morning. All 4 children have been sick. She locked us in here and refused to let me take them to a doctor." "That's not true." Meredith's voice broke beautifully. "Mom has been confused since my father-in-law died. She insisted on quarantining with the children. We brought her food, medication. We were trying to respect her wishes while keeping her safe. The door was locked from the outside. I looked at the paramedic. Check the lock, and there's a phone signal blocker. That's why I couldn't call 911. A police officer appeared behind the paramedics, young, maybe 30, with a notepad already out. "Ma'am, I'm Officer Reeves. Can you tell me what's happening here? My daughter-in-law locked me and 4 children in this room for 3 days. The baby nearly died last night. She's been poisoning the children to make them sick. There are medical records in that closet. Prescription bottles with old labels showing ipecac. They're trying to steal my inheritance and they needed me declared incompetent." I said it all in one breath, knowing how it sounded, knowing what they saw. A disheveled woman in 3-day-old clothes, hair wild, eyes probably crazy with exhaustion and fear. And Meredith, perfectly put together, tears streaming down her beautiful face. "Officer, my mother-in-law has been struggling with grief." Dylan's voice was heavy with concern. Her husband died recently. Large estate. She's been making accusations, seeing conspiracies. We filed for emergency psychiatric evaluation yesterday because we were worried she might hurt herself, or the children. Check his story. I pointed at Dylan. He says he was in Denver. His car's been in the driveway for 3 days. Call his office. Verify the trip. Officer Reeves looked at Dylan. "Sir, were you out of town?" "I was supposed to be. I canceled the trip yesterday when things got worse with my mother." Dylan pulled out his phone. "I can show you the flight cancellation. The children." I looked at the paramedics. "Test their blood. You'll find ipecac in their systems. Chronic low levels. She's been poisoning them for months." The second paramedic, an older man with gray hair, looked up from where he was examining Lucas. "This child is in respiratory distress. Temperature 104. 6. We need to transport immediately. All 4 children need to be tested. I said. Please, check their medical records. They've been to the ER repeatedly. Always the same symptoms. Always when I wasn't around to witness it. Ma'am, Officer Reeves's voice was gentle. Why don't you come downstairs with me? We can talk while the paramedics help the children. I'm not leaving them. Grandma? Sophia's voice from the bathroom. The 3 children emerged, still wrapped in blankets. Sophia walked straight to Officer Reeves. My mom locked the door. I heard her. Grandma tried to call for help, but the phone wouldn't work. Lucas stopped breathing last night and Grandma saved him. We're not supposed to tell anyone because Mom said Grandma would go away forever. But I don't want Grandma to go away. The room went silent. Officer Reeves knelt down to Sophia's level. Honey, that's very helpful. Thank you for telling me. She's 9 years old. Meredith's voice shook. She doesn't understand what she's saying. She's been through trauma. My mother-in-law broke a window. It terrified her. I understand perfectly fine. Sophia looked at her mother with something that might have been hatred. You made us sick. All the time. You made Uncle Todd give us medicine that hurt our stomachs. You told us it was vitamins, but it wasn't. And you locked Grandma in here with us and said if we told anyone, we'd never see her again. The female paramedic straightened up from Lucas. She looked at her partner, then at Officer Reeves. We need to transport all 4 children, and I'm requesting a supervisor and child protective services. Something isn't right here. That's ridiculous. Dylan moved toward Sophia. Sweetheart, you're confused. Don't. I stepped between them. Don't you dare touch her. Mom, please. Dylan's face crumpled. You're not well. We're just trying to help. Help? I looked at my son. Really looked at him. You were going to have me committed tomorrow. Take control of everything your father and I built. How much debt are you in, Dylan? How much do you owe? His face went white. Check their finances, I said to Officer Reeves. Check the house ownership. Check their accounts. They're desperate. That's why they're doing this. More sirens outside. More voices. The cavalry was arriving, but I didn't know if it was for me or for them. A woman in a suit appeared in the doorway. I'm Detective Sarah Chen, Financial Crimes Unit. She looked at Officer Reeves. Got a call about possible elder exploitation. What do we have? I could have cried with relief. This woman called us, Officer Reeves said. Claims she was locked in this room with 4 children for 3 days. Claims there's evidence of child abuse and financial fraud. The caller wasn't from this house. Detective Chen pulled out her phone, showed us the screen. Call came from across the street. Neighbor named Walter Mitchell. Said he'd been concerned for days about activity here. Saw an elderly woman and children in the window. They were holding up signs. Signs? I looked at Sophia. She bit her lip. We made them yesterday when you were sleeping. Out of Mason's coloring paper. We held them up when people drove by. Help us and call police, Mr. Mitchell saw. That's, Meredith started. There's more. Detective Chen looked at Dylan. Mr. Mitchell also called your wife's brother, Dr. Todd Ashford. Left a message saying he was concerned about elderly abuse. Dr. Ashford called him back an hour ago and told him to mind his own business, that there was no problem here. Mitchell found that suspicious, so he called us. Todd had made a mistake. One small mistake. I want to see the medical records, Detective Chen said, and the prescription bottles. And I want to talk to Dr. Ashford. It was falling apart. I could see it in Meredith's face, in the way Dylan's hands shook. The children need to go to the hospital now, the paramedic said. I'm going with them. I looked at Detective Chen. All of them. She nodded. Officer Reeves will accompany you. Mrs. Whitmore. She looked at Meredith. I'd like you to come to the station. Voluntarily, for now. We have questions. I want my lawyer. That's your right. They took us out of that room, all of us. The children on gurneys. Me walking beside Lucas, my hand on his little foot. Meredith and Dylan standing in the hallway. Their perfect life cracking apart. As we reached the stairs, I looked back once. Dylan was crying. Meredith was on her phone, and I knew this wasn't over. Not even close. They kept the children overnight at Toledo Hospital. Lucas in pediatric ICU, the others in a shared room under observation. I sat in a chair between Lucas's incubator and the room where Sophia slept, refusing to leave either of them. Detective Chen arrived at 11 p.m. with a coffee I didn't remember asking for and news I'd been dreading. Toxicology came back on all 4 children. Chronic low-level exposure to emetine. That's the active compound in ipecac syrup. She sat down across from me. The levels in Lucas are acute, dangerous. He was dosed heavily within the last 48 hours. My hands tightened around the coffee cup. Can you prove who did it? We're working on it. We executed a search warrant on the house 2 hours ago. Found 17 bottles of ipecac hidden in Meredith Whitmore's bathroom. Different brands, different purchase dates going back 8 months, all prescribed by Dr. Todd Ashford from a pharmacy in Cincinnati. We're bringing him in for questioning now. And Meredith? She lawyered up immediately. Public defender for now. She's claiming she was following medical advice from her brother, that he told her the medication was necessary for the children's digestive issues. That's insane. It's a strategy. Chen took a sip from her own coffee. Todd's the medical professional. She can claim she trusted him. Didn't know the medication was harmful. Was just following doctor's orders. What about Dylan? Chen's expression shifted. Your son is cooperating. He's been talking for the last 3 hours. Something in her voice made my chest tight. What did he say? He says he didn't know about the ipecac. Didn't know the children were being made sick intentionally. He admits to the plan to gain control of your finances. Says Meredith convinced him you were declining mentally, that the grief was making you incompetent, that they needed to protect the inheritance for the grandchildren. He was going to have me committed. He signed the petition, yes. But Mrs. Whitmore, he also brought us something. She pulled out her phone, showed me an email thread. This is from Meredith to Todd. 3 weeks ago. Your son found it this afternoon on her laptop. I read it slowly. Todd, mother-in-law still resistant. Dylan's weakening. Getting cold feet about the commitment hearing. Need to accelerate timeline. Can you increase Lucas's symptoms? Something that requires hospitalization? Would give us leverage. She won't resist if she thinks we saved him. My vision blurred. I read it again. Dylan's weakening, getting cold feet. There's more. Chen scrolled down. Todd's response. Too risky. Lucas is already symptomatic. Push harder, and we risk actual organ damage. Better to maintain current protocol and pressure Dylan. He'll follow through. He always does. Money's too tight for him to back out now. He knew. My voice sounded distant. Dylan knew they were hurting Lucas. No. Chen pulled the phone back. Read the date. This exchange happened 3 weeks ago. Your son found this email today and immediately brought it to us. He says he had no idea about the ipecac until he saw this. That Meredith told him the children had chronic infections. That Todd was treating them legitimately. How much is 3 weeks of silence worth? I looked at her. 3 weeks where Lucas was being poisoned and Dylan did nothing? He didn't know about the email 3 weeks ago. Meredith hid it. He found it this afternoon when we executed the search warrant. He was looking through her things, trying to understand what had happened. I stood up, walked to Lucas's incubator. He was sleeping, his small chest rising and falling with help from oxygen. IVs in both arms. Monitors beeping softly. Where is Dylan now? Downstairs, waiting room. He's been asking to see you. I don't want to see him. Mrs. Whitmore. Chen's voice was gentle. I've been doing this job for 12 years. I've seen a lot of financial exploitation cases, a lot of family betrayals. Your son made terrible choices. He was going to steal from you. He was going to have you committed based on lies. But the evidence suggests he genuinely didn't know his wife was poisoning their children. He should have known. He's their father. Yes. She didn't argue. He should have, and he's going to live with that. But right now, we need his testimony. He's the only one who can connect the financial fraud to the larger conspiracy. Without him, Meredith walks on everything except the ipecac charges. Todd might walk entirely. I pressed my hand against the incubator glass. What do you need from me? Talk to him. Let him explain. You don't have to forgive him. You don't have to ever speak to him again after tonight. But let him tell you what he knows. It'll help the case. I closed my eyes. Thought about Richard. About what he would say. He would want you to protect the kids, Chen said quietly, reading my mind. That's what this is about now. Making sure Meredith and Todd can never hurt them again. 5 minutes later, Dylan walked into the pediatric ICU. He looked like he'd aged 10 years since yesterday. Unshaven, eyes red, wearing the same clothes I'd seen him in that morning. He stopped 3 feet away from me, close enough to talk, far enough to run if I told him to leave. Mom, his voice cracked. I'm so sorry. I didn't say anything, just looked at him. I know that's not enough. I know sorry doesn't fix anything. But I need you to know I didn't know about the ipecac. I swear to God, I didn't know. You knew about stealing my money. Yes. He didn't try to deny it. Yes, we're in debt. $340,000 between the mortgage, the investment property we bought in Florida that's hemorrhaging cash, Meredith's credit cards. I panicked. When Dad died and I saw the estate numbers, I thought... He stopped. Started again. I thought I could borrow from it, just temporarily. Pay it back before you noticed. By having me declared incompetent. Meredith's idea. She convinced me you were declining. Pointed out little things. How you forgot a lunch date. Mixed up days of the week. Couldn't remember passwords. She made it seem like you were getting worse. Like we needed to protect you from yourself. I forgot one lunch. 1. 6 months ago, when Richard was dying. I know that now. But she was so convincing. And I wanted to believe it because it solved all our problems. If you couldn't manage your own finances, I could access the accounts, fix our debt, and you'd never even know. That's not borrowing, that's theft. Yes. His face crumpled. It is. And I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make it right. But Mom, I swear I thought the kids just had bad immune systems. Meredith told me Todd was running tests, looking for autoimmune disorders. I never questioned it because Todd's a doctor. Why would he hurt his own nephews and nieces? For money. You were going to pay him. Dylan nodded. $50,000. After the conservatorship went through. He was going to testify about your mental decline. The psychiatrist he recommended, Dr. Morrison, she was getting $25,000. It was all arranged. And the locked room? The quarantine? I thought you agreed to it. Meredith told me you insisted on isolating with the kids, that you were paranoid about COVID exposure. She showed me texts from your phone agreeing to it. Forged. I know that now. I saw them on her laptop this afternoon. She was using an app to fake messages from your number. Probably has been for months. He moved closer to Lucas's incubator. When I found those emails, the ones between her and Todd about increasing Lucas's symptoms, I felt like I was going to throw up. My wife was poisoning our children, and I was so wrapped up in the money problems and the plan to get control of your estate that I didn't see it. You saw what you wanted to see. Yes. He looked at Lucas. He almost died because I was blind. Sophia, Mason, Isabella, they've been sick over and over because I believed Meredith every time she said it was normal, that kids just get sick. I failed all of them. I watched him looking at his son, saw the genuine horror on his face. The detective said you found the emails and brought them immediately. As soon as I read them, I called Detective Chen before I even finished reading, gave her access to everything. Meredith's laptop, phone records, bank statements, all of it. That doesn't erase what you did. I know. He finally looked at me. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for a chance to make it right. To testify against Meredith and Todd. To help put them away so they can never hurt anyone again. And after that, his voice broke. After that, I'll accept whatever you decide. If you never want to see me again, I'll understand. If you want to press charges against me too, I'll plead guilty. Whatever you need. What I need is for my grandchildren to be safe. They will be. I promise you. Meredith will never be alone with them again. Ever. I'm filing for divorce tomorrow. Emergency custody order. And I'm cooperating fully with the prosecution. Where will you live? He looked surprised by the question. I'll figure something out. The house has to be sold to pay debts anyway. I'll find an apartment. Something small. You have 4 children. Small won't work. Mom, I'm not doing this for you. I kept my voice steady. I'm doing it for them. They need stability. They need routine. They're going to need therapy. A lot of it. Having their mother in prison and their father in some studio apartment isn't going to help. What are you saying? I'm saying I have a house, 4 bedrooms, paid off, and right now it's empty except for me and memories of your father. I looked at Lucas, at the monitors tracking his fragile life. Those children deserve better than what they've gotten, from all of us. You want us to live with you? I want them to live with me. You're their father. You'll be there. But this isn't forgiveness, Dylan. This is me doing what's necessary for 4 children who've been through hell. He wiped his eyes, nodded. Okay, thank you. Don't thank me. Just tell the truth, all of it. Everything Meredith and Todd planned. Every lie, every manipulation, every dollar they tried to steal. You do that, and maybe, eventually, we can figure out if there's anything left between us worth saving. I will, I promise. Detective Chen appeared in the doorway. Mrs. Whitmore, we need you downstairs. Meredith's lawyer is asking for a meeting. She says her client wants to make a statement. I looked at Dylan. Is she going to try to blame you? Probably. He straightened his shoulders. Let her try. I've got receipts. We walked downstairs together, not touching. The space between us filled with everything broken and everything that might someday be repaired. Meredith's statement lasted 4 minutes. She sat in the conference room at Toledo Police Department with her public defender, a tired-looking woman named Patricia Gomez, and told Detective Chen that everything had been Todd's idea. The ipecac, the forged medical records, the plan to have me committed. She'd been following her brother's medical advice. She'd trusted him. She'd been manipulated. Dr. Ashford told me the medication was necessary, Meredith said, her voice steady. He said the children had a rare digestive condition, that the treatment would make them temporarily sick but would cure the underlying problem. I believed him. He's a doctor. My brother. Why would I question him? Detective Chen slid a printout across the table. The email. The one where Meredith had asked Todd to increase Lucas's symptoms. Can you explain this? Meredith looked at it for a long time. That's taken out of context. I was asking if we needed to take Lucas back to the hospital. Increase symptoms meant make sure we were documenting everything properly. The email specifically says, can you increase Lucas's symptoms? Something that requires hospitalization. Would give us leverage. Leverage with the insurance company. They'd been denying claims. It was smooth. Practiced. Meredith had probably rehearsed this version for hours. What about the financial fraud? Chen pulled out another document. The forged power of attorney papers, the petition for conservatorship, the plan to transfer $890,000 from your mother-in-law's accounts. Dylan handled all of that. I barely understood what was happening. He said his mother needed help managing her finances, that it was temporary. I trusted my husband. Patricia Gomez cleared her throat. My client is willing to testify against Dr. Ashford in exchange for reduced charges. She's also prepared to provide documentation of his previous cases where similar patterns occurred. Dr. Ashford has a history of this behavior. I watched from behind the one-way glass. Dylan stood beside me, his hands clenched into fists. She's lying, he said quietly. About all of it. I know. I have the bank records, the emails she sent to lawyers shopping for the most corrupt psychiatrist, the texts where she told Todd exactly how much ipecac to prescribe. Everything. I know. Detective Chen's voice came through the speaker. Mrs. Whitmore, we have evidence that contradicts your statement. Text messages between you and Dr. Ashford discussing dosages. Bank records showing you made payments to Dr. Morrison before she agreed to evaluate your mother-in-law. Credit card receipts for ipecac purchases from multiple pharmacies. Meredith's perfect composure cracked slightly. Those could be fabricated. They're not. We've verified everything. We also have testimony from your husband detailing your role in the conspiracy. Dylan, Meredith's voice went cold. Dylan is lying to protect himself. He's the one who wanted access to the money. He's the one who was desperate. I was trying to help him. You're saying your husband forced you to poison your children? I didn't poison them. Todd treated them, following Dylan's instructions. It was fascinating in a horrible way. Watching her try every angle, blame Todd, blame Dylan, play the confused wife, the manipulated sister. None of it stuck because we had documentation for everything. Chen stood up. Mrs. Whitmore, you're under arrest for 4 counts of child endangerment, conspiracy to commit fraud, attempted theft, elder abuse, and unlawful imprisonment. Ms. Gomez, your client's cooperation offer is declined. Meredith's face went white. You can't do this. I have children. They need their mother. They need to be safe, which they weren't with you. 2 officers moved forward with handcuffs. Dylan! Meredith was screaming now. Dylan, tell them. Tell them it was your idea. You can't let them do this to me. Dylan's hand found mine, squeezed once. I'm sorry, Meredith, but I'm done lying. They took her out still screaming. Todd was arrested 3 hours later at his medical office. He'd been seeing patients all day, playing the concerned family physician. The police found additional evidence in his files. 8 other elderly patients whose families had contacted him about cognitive decline. 3 cases where he'd recommended conservatorship. 2 cases where the families had paid him consulting fees. He'd been running this scheme for at least 5 years. The trial took 9 months. Dylan testified for 3 days. I testified for 2. Sophia, at 10 years old, gave a 15-minute testimony that destroyed any remaining sympathy the jury might have had for Meredith. My mom made us sick on purpose, she said clearly. She gave us medicine that hurt our stomachs. When we cried, she said it was to make us stronger. Uncle Todd told her exactly how much to give us so we wouldn't die, but we'd be sick enough to go to the hospital. They did it so they could say Grandma couldn't take care of us. Meredith got 4 years. Todd got 6. Both lost their professional licenses. Both were ordered to pay restitution. Dr. Morrison, the psychiatrist who'd agreed to falsify my evaluation, lost her license and got 2 years probation. She'd done this before, too. Testified in 4 other conservatorship cases with questionable evidence. The system had failed a lot of people before it finally caught them. 18 months after that Wednesday when I broke the window, I stood in my kitchen making Sunday dinner. The house on Maple Street had new locks, new paint, new memories being built over the old ones. Lucas, nearly 3 now, sat in his high chair smashing banana slices. His medical records showed no lasting damage from the ipecac exposure. Just regular checkups now. No mysterious fevers. No emergency room visits. Mason and Isabella played in the backyard, their laughter drifting through the open window. They were in therapy once a week, making progress. Mason still had nightmares sometimes. Isabella asked periodically when Mommy was coming home. The therapist said that was normal, that it would take years to fully process what had happened. Sophia helped me set the table. She'd started wearing her hair in a ponytail like mine. Called me every day after school even though she only lived 10 minutes away with Dylan. Dad says he found an apartment, she mentioned casually, folding napkins the way I'd taught her. I heard. Dylan had been living in the house with me for 16 months, sleeping in the guest room, taking the kids to school, coming to family dinners, rebuilding trust molecule by molecule. He says it's got 3 bedrooms. We'd each have to share, but it's got a yard. Sounds nice. Are you making him leave? I looked at her. This child who'd been brave enough to tell the truth when it mattered? Who'd made signs asking for help? Who'd testified against her own mother? No. Your dad's leaving because he's ready, because living here was temporary, because he needs to prove to himself that he can take care of you kids independently. But we'll still come here for dinners? Every Sunday, and Wednesdays, and whenever you want. The doorbell rang. Dylan, arriving with Lucas's diaper bag and the dessert he'd promised to bring. We ate together, laughed together. The kids told stories about school and friends and ordinary things. Dylan washed dishes while I dried. We'd developed a routine, careful, polite, with spaces between us that might never fully close but had at least stopped growing. After dinner, after the kids were occupied with a movie in the living room, Dylan and I stood on the back porch. Snow was falling, early winter in Toledo. I got a letter from Meredith, he said. You don't have to tell me. She wants to see the kids. Says she's been going to therapy in prison. That she understands what she did wrong. That she wants a chance to apologize to them. What did you tell her? Nothing yet. I wanted to ask you first. I watched the snow collect on the fence posts. Thought about the woman who'd locked me in a room. Who'd poisoned her own children. Who'd tried to steal everything Richard and I had built. The kids have a therapist, I said finally. Ask Dr. Rodriguez what she thinks. If she says they're ready, if she says it won't hurt them, then maybe. Years from now, when they're older, when they can choose for themselves whether they want contact. And if Dr. Rodriguez says no, then no. The kids' well-being comes first, not Meredith's redemption arc. Dylan nodded slowly. I'm sorry. For all of it. I know I say it too much, but I don't know what else to say. You show it. Every day. That's enough. Is it? Will it ever be enough? I looked at him. My son, who'd betrayed me and then saved me, who'd been weak and then found strength, who'd lost his wife and gained his children's trust back piece by careful piece. Ask me again in 5 years. He smiled slightly. Fair enough. Inside, Lucas started crying. Dylan went to him automatically. I stayed on the porch a moment longer. The floriculture business had reopened 6 months ago. I'd hired a manager, a young woman named Sarah who had a degree in horticulture and dreams of owning her own shop someday. I went in 3 days a week, enough to feel useful. Not so much that I couldn't be available when the kids needed me. The $890,000 was untouched except for lawyer fees and the security system I'd installed. I'd set up college funds for all 4 children, established a trust that Dylan couldn't access, but that would support them if anything happened to me. I'd also donated $100,000 to a nonprofit that helped elderly victims of financial exploitation, created a scholarship at the community college for students studying elder law, funded a support group that met monthly at the library. Richard's money was doing good. That's what he would have wanted. My phone buzzed. A text from Walter Mitchell, my neighbor, the man who'd called the police. Baked too many cookies again. Can I bring some over? I smiled. Walter had become a regular presence. Sunday dinners sometimes. Coffee on Tuesday mornings. Someone to talk to who understood what it meant to survive something that should have broken you. Always room for your cookies, I texted back. I went inside. Lucas had calmed down, was showing Dylan a book. Sophia and Mason were building a fort with cushions. Isabella was singing to herself. This was what winning looked like. Not perfect, not Hollywood. Just 4 children safe. 1 son learning to be better. 1 grandmother who'd fought for her life and won it back. Meredith had tried to take everything. My money, my freedom, my grandchildren, my future. She'd failed. I had my independence, my home, my family, fractured but healing, my life on my terms. That evening, after Dylan took the kids home, I sat in Richard's recliner with the quilt his mother had made us as a wedding gift. The house was quiet, peaceful. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Mrs. Whitmore, this is Warden Sandra Mills from Ohio Reformatory for Women. I'm calling about Meredith Whitmore. She's asked to add you to her approved contact list, to request a visit. I looked at the family photos on the mantle, the new ones, from Sophia's birthday party, from Lucas's 3rd birthday, Mason's first soccer game, Isabella's dance recital, all the moments Meredith had missed, would keep missing. No, I said, I'm declining. She also asked if you'd accept letters. No, I understand. I'll note that in her file. Warden Mills, one more thing. If she asks again in 6 months or a year or 5 years, the answer will still be no. She chose to put her children in danger. She chose to try to steal from me. She chose all of it. And I choose not to participate in her rehabilitation. I'll make sure that's documented clearly. Thank you for your time, Mrs. Whitmore. I hung up. Felt nothing but the satisfying click of a door closing. Some people deserved second chances. Some people earned forgiveness through consistent changed behavior. And some people needed to live with the permanent consequences of their choices. Meredith would get out of prison eventually. Would probably try to reconstruct her life. Maybe she'd succeed. Maybe she'd fail. It didn't matter to me anymore. She was done taking things from me. I pulled the quilt tighter and closed my eyes. Tomorrow I'd go to the shop. Wednesday I'd have dinner with the kids. Friday I was having coffee with Walter and 2 other members of the financial exploitation survivors group we'd started. My calendar was full of small, ordinary, precious things. I was 60 years old. I had money in the bank and a home that was mine and grandchildren who knew I'd break windows and risk everything to keep them safe. Meredith had taught me something valuable, though she'd never meant to. She'd taught me exactly how strong I was, and I'd chosen to use that strength not for revenge, but for building something better. That was the kind of power that lasted. The kind that let you sleep peacefully. The kind that won.